Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving into a topic today that a lot of our listeners, especially women, are going to relate to, ageism.
Hmm.
And we're doing this deep dive because a listener wrote in and she's 45
Hmm.
and starting to feel a real shift, like how she's being seen and treated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting how quickly those perceptions can change, right? Like she was
Yeah.
saying, it's totally different from what her parents went through at the same age. So it makes you wonder, like, are things different now? How much are these like societal norms changing?
Right, exactly. So we thought, okay, let's see what other women are saying about this.
Hmm.
So we found this Reddit thread and oh my gosh, people had a lot to say.
I bet those firsthand accounts are so valuable. You get the real nitty gritty, like what ageism actually looks and feels like day to day.
Totally. So one of the biggest things that jumped out at us was this idea of like the invisibility factor. Like
Yeah.
as women get older, they just feel ignored, overlooked,
Hmm.
especially in like male-dominated fields.
Yeah, that's a classic example of unconscious bias. Like people just automatically make assumptions about what you can do based on your age. They don't even realize they're doing it.
It's crazy, right? And then of course there's the whole beauty standards thing. A lot of women were talking about how that plays into aging, especially if they used to rely on their looks for like validation.
Yeah, it's tough. Our culture puts so much emphasis on looking young, especially for women. So as you get older and don't fit that mold anymore, it can be really hard. It's like this whole mess of self-perception and, buying into all these societal messages.
For sure. And then, get this, there's this whole debate about whether ageism is worse now than for, like, our parents' generation.
Hmm.
Some people are blaming Gen Z for being rude, but others think it's a bigger societal shift, like maybe things have gotten worse since COVID. I don't know.
That is interesting. It really makes you think about how social norms change over time. Like, could it be all the stress and isolation everyone's been going through? Maybe that's making people less patient,
Hmm.
less polite in general.
Yeah, maybe. It's something to think about for sure. And of course, a lot of the comments were about, like, how to deal with this stuff.
Yeah.
Women sharing their coping mechanisms, like focusing on what you can control, finding your tribe, speaking up against ageism.
All great strategies. It's so important to find ways to stay empowered when you're facing this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So let's jump into some of these personal stories and see what resonates with you guys listening. Okay, so this one woman writes, I'm only 45, but I've noticed a huge shift in the past year. People at work are always asking when I'll retire, and they seem to doubt my technical skills just because I've been in the field for a while. I also feel excluded from social gatherings with younger colleagues. Oof.
It's sad, but so common. Ageism can show up in so many ways. At work, in social situations, even in your family. And it's often these subtle little things that add up over time and make you feel less than.
Yeah, totally. And it's not just at work either. Another woman shared this experience. Okay, so get this. She's at some event and someone says to her, I think you are looking for qualified young men in this group for one of your daughters.
Ugh. See, that's what I mean about those deeply ingrained societal perceptions. Like, this woman is just assumed to be a mom on the husband hunt for her daughters, as if that's her only purpose.
Exactly. It's like her own goals and dreams are invisible. And it's not just men making these assumptions either. One woman said that younger women tend to look at older women like animals in a zoo, which is kind of a harsh but powerful image.
Yeah, it is. And it speaks to this weird dynamic that can happen between women sometimes. Like maybe it's fear of aging or, that whole internalized misogyny thing where they've absorbed all these messages about older women not being valuable. Or maybe it's just plain old competition. Who knows?
Right. Like they're so afraid to even acknowledge aging that they distance themselves from anyone who represents it. Okay, this next one really blew my mind. A woman writes that when she was in the hospital, nurses were shocked to hear that she was still getting her period. She was 51, which is like right around the average age for menopause.
This is a perfect example of ageism in healthcare, which is a real problem. It can lead to misdiagnosis, inadequate care, and just a general lack of respect for older patients. This situation just shows how little understanding and sensitivity there is around women's aging bodies.
Seriously. Like menopause is still this big taboo topic. We need to be talking about this stuff more openly and honestly. Okay, so here's one that's a little bit lighter. One woman wrote, I, 62, never noticed a difference until I let my hair go to its natural all-white state. Now people hold doors and let me go first. I kind of like it.
Uh-huh. I love that. It reminds us that there can be some perks to aging, too.
Right.
Like gaining a certain level of respect or just feeling more comfortable in your own skin.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's about owning your age and rocking it. Okay, but back to some of the tougher stuff. This woman told her son about a woman at the gym she thought he might like, and his response was, My son said I should never talk to girls that age, that I'll become known as the creepy old guy.
Oh, wow. It's crazy how much pressure there is on women to stay youthful and attractive, even in the eyes of their own kids. And it speaks to this fear of being seen as creepy or inappropriate, which is something older women often have to deal with.
It's like once you hit a certain age, your interests and desires are suddenly off limits. Okay, this next one's a tough pill to swallow. A woman writes, how bad does it get? You can't even get an interview, never mind a job.
This is the harsh reality for a lot of older workers, unfortunately, and it's a huge loss for companies who are missing out on all that experience and skill. Age discrimination in hiring is still a major problem, even with laws against it. And it often comes down to these stereotypes like older workers aren't adaptable or tech savvy, which is just not true.
Exactly. Okay, let's end this section on a positive note. This comment really resonated with me. It says, if you're feeling youthful, then others will treat you the same. Be sure to exude confidence and don't give a crap what others think. You'll be a mentor to others.
Ooh, I love that. It's so true. Your attitude and how you carry yourself makes a huge difference. You can't always control how other people see you, but you can control how you feel about yourself.
It's about defining your own narrative and not letting society dictate how you should age.
Exactly. And, a few people in the thread mentioned that it feels like social skills in general have gone downhill, especially since COVID.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like one woman said, social skills for everyone have gone down WN since the advent of cell phones. The younger generation just doesn't know how to engage hot people, period.
Hmm. Well, there has been research on the social impact of the pandemic, and it does seem like all that stress and isolation might have eroded some of those social graces, made people a little more self-centered. So maybe it's not just about age, but a more general shift in how we interact with each other.
Right, like
Yeah.
when everyone's on edge, it's easier to be dismissive or insensitive, even if you don't mean to be.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole technology thing too, assuming older people don't know how to use a computer or smartphone.
Oh, yeah, someone wrote about that. Like, I find some younger people think I don't know how to use a cell phone or computer. I was using a computer for many years at my various jobs.
Exactly. It's this assumption that older people aren't tech savvy, which is just not true in a lot of cases. We need to give each other the benefit of the doubt and approach each other with more respect and patience, regardless of age or, how good we think someone is with technology.
Absolutely. Okay, this next one sparked a lot of discussion. One woman wrote, young women look at other women like animals in a zoo if they know they're over 40.
Wow. That's pretty intense. It really makes you think about the disconnect between generations of women. Like, what can we do to bridge that gap and build more solidarity?
Right. We need to move past this us versus them mentality and recognize that we're all in this together. Okay, switching gears a bit. This next comment takes us back to the workplace. This woman was being laid off, and she was told that she was a member of a protected class because she was over 40.
Oh, interesting. That's how those age discrimination laws come into play, right? But it's also kind of ironic, like you're protected, but also kind of labeled at the same time.
Exactly. It's a weird double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And speaking of labels, one woman was surprised that nurses acted shocked when she mentioned still getting her period at 51.
Yeah, that brings us back to the whole taboo around menopause and women's aging bodies. There's just so much misunderstanding, and it can make women feel really isolated and ashamed during a natural biological process.
We need to normalize these conversations for
Yeah.
sure. Okay, I got to share this one. It's kind of funny. A woman wrote, I, 62, never noticed a difference until I let my hair go to its natural all-white state. Now people hold doors and let me go first. I kind of like it.
Haha. I love that. It's like aging isn't always a bad thing. It can come with some perks. And for some people, embracing those changes can be really empowering.
Like those silver strands become a badge of honor. Okay, back to some of the heavier stuff. This woman told her son about a woman at the gym she thought he might like, and his response was, my son said I should never talk to girls that age, that I'll become known as the creepy old guy.
It's sad that even our own kids can internalize these ageist attitudes, and it really highlights the pressure on women to stay youthful and desirable no matter what. It's like there's this invisible line you cross where suddenly your interests and desires are seen as inappropriate.
Yeah, it's like society tries to put older women in a box and limit their experiences. This next comment is pretty disheartening. A woman writes, how bad does it get? You can't even get an interview, never mind a job.
Ugh, it's true. Age discrimination in hiring is a real problem, and it often comes down to these outdated stereotypes about older workers, which is a huge loss for companies because they're missing out on all that experience and knowledge.
For real, we need to create more inclusive workplaces that value diversity in all its forms, including age. Okay, let's end this section on a positive note. This comment really stood out to me. It says, if you're feeling youthful, then others will treat you the same. Be sure to exude confidence and don't give a crap what others think. You'll be a mentor to others.
Yes. Love that. Your mindset and how you carry yourself makes such a difference. We can't always control how other people perceive us, but we can control how we feel about ourselves.
It's about owning who you are and embracing every stage of life with enthusiasm and purpose.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that aging isn't a decline, but an evolution.
And one woman made a really interesting observation about how our own experiences might shape how we view aging. She said, I think you are correct. In my 50s, the only people complaining in my world are those for whom looks were paramount or were always stunning. What do you make of that?
That's a really good point. It suggests that aging can be especially hard for people who've always defined themselves by their looks. As those features change, it can be really unsettling. It's like their whole world is shifting.
So it's about cultivating a deeper sense of self-worth, one that goes beyond just physical appearance.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that true beauty comes from within and that our value doesn't diminish as we age.
So with all these different perspectives in mind, I'm curious to hear what's resonating most with you, our listener. What are your experiences with ageism?
Yeah, it's about finding that inner confidence that radiates outward no matter what. And it's interesting because, some people in the thread were talking about how social skills overall seem to have declined, like especially since
Oh,
COVID.
yeah, totally.
Like people are just ruder in general. Well, it could be. There's been some research on that, and it seems like all that stress and isolation from the pandemic might have had a negative impact on social behavior. Maybe it made people a little more self-centered and less aware of others. So it might not be just about age, but like a more widespread shift in how we treat each other.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like when everyone's on edge, it's easier to be, I don't know, less thoughtful.
Right. And then you add in the whole technology thing, people being glued to their phones all the time and maybe not developing those face-to-face social skills as much. It's easy to make assumptions and misinterpret things, especially when there's an age difference.
Totally. And it goes both ways, too, like assuming that older people aren't tech savvy.
Oh, yeah. Like that comment we saw about someone thinking that just because you're older, you don't know how to use a computer. It's ridiculous.
Right. Like I find some younger people think, I don't know how to use a cell phone or computer. I was using a computer for many years at my various jobs.
Exactly. We need to give each other a break and approach each other with more respect and patience. Age really shouldn't matter when it comes to basic human decency.
I agree. Okay, this next one was pretty intense. One woman wrote, young women look at other women like animals in a zoo if they know they are over 40.
Ooh, that's a tough one. It really highlights that gap between generations of women. Like, we need to find a way to connect and understand each other better.
For sure. We're all women. We're all going through this aging process together.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be an us versus them situation.
Exactly. Okay, let's shift gears for a second and talk about the workplace. One woman shared this experience where she was being laid off, and they told her she was part of a protected class because she was over 40.
Oh, yeah. That's because of the age discrimination laws, right?
Oh.
But it's weird because it feels like you're being protected, but also singled out at the same time.
Yeah, it's a strange dynamic. It highlights that ageism is a real thing that needs legal protection, but it also kind of puts a label on you.
Totally. And speaking of labels, one woman was surprised that nurses were like shocked when she mentioned still getting her period at 51. Like they couldn't believe it.
Right. It's that whole taboo around menopause and women's aging bodies that we were talking about earlier. We need to normalize these conversations and educate people so women don't feel so alone and ashamed about these natural experiences.
Totally agree. Okay, I just have to share this one because it made me laugh. A woman wrote, I, 62, never noticed a difference until I let my hair go to its natural all-white state. Now people hold doors and let me go first. I kind of like it.
Haha, that's great. See, aging does have its perks.
Cool.
And I love that she's embracing it.
It's like those silver strands become a symbol of respect. Okay, back to some of the more challenging stuff. This woman told her son about a woman at the gym she thought he might like, and his response was, my son said I should never talk to girls that age, that I'll become known as the creepy old guy.
Ugh, that's so sad. It really shows how deeply ingrained these ageist attitudes are. Even our own kids can pick them up. And it really highlights the pressure on women to stay young and attractive no matter what. Like once you hit a certain age, your interests and desires are suddenly seen as inappropriate or creepy.
It's so messed up.
Yeah.
Like, why can't older women be interested in dating or have crushes or just, be seen as attractive?
Right. It's this limiting belief that really needs to change. Okay, this next comment is a tough one. A woman writes, "How bad does it get? You can't even get an interview, never mind a job."
Yeah, that's the harsh reality of age discrimination in hiring. It's like you're automatically disqualified because of your age, which is so unfair.
It is. And it's a huge loss for companies who are missing out on all the experience and knowledge that older workers have to offer.
Okay, let's end this section on a positive note, though. This comment really resonated with me. If you're feeling youthful, then others will treat you the same. Be sure to exude confidence and don't give a crap what others think. You'll be a mentor to others.
I love that. It's all about mindset, right?
Yes.
Projecting that confidence and not letting other people's perceptions get you down.
It's about owning who you are and rocking every stage of life. And remember, aging isn't a bad thing. It's a natural process we all go through.
Yeah,
And with age comes wisdom and experience and a whole lot of other good stuff.
absolutely. It's about reframing the narrative and seeing aging as a positive thing.
Exactly. And, one woman made a really interesting observation about how our own experiences might influence how we view aging. She said, "I think you are correct. In my 50s, the only people complaining in my world are those for whom looks were paramount or were always stunning."
That's a really insightful point. It suggests that aging can be especially hard for people who've built their whole identity around their physical appearance. So as they get older and those features change, it can be really unsettling, like a real identity crisis.
So it's about finding a deeper sense of self-worth that goes beyond just how you look.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that true beauty comes from within and that our value as human beings doesn't decrease as we get older. In fact, it should increase.
I love that. So what about you, our listener? What are your thoughts on all of this? What are your experiences with ageism? So we've covered a lot of ground here. Feeling invisible, dealing with stereotypes at work and in social situations. It's a lot. What does all this mean for our listener who wrote in and for anyone else struggling with ageism?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is you're not alone. Ageism is so ingrained in our society, it's everywhere. And it comes from these deep-seated cultural norms and often these unconscious biases that people aren't even aware of.
It's so easy to internalize it, though, right? Like it's your fault somehow that you're being treated differently.
Right, exactly. But recognizing that it's a bigger societal problem can actually be empowering because it means it's not about you personally, it's about this wider context that needs to change.
That makes sense. So how do we deal with it then, like while we're waiting for society to catch up?
Well, in the meantime, it's about focusing on what you can control, like your attitude, your skills, taking care of yourself.
Right. You can't change how other people see you overnight, but you can focus on feeling good from the inside out.
Exactly. And it's about investing in your well-being. Stay active, eat healthy, do things that bring you joy, surround yourself with good people. It all helps to build resilience and cope with the challenges. And don't be afraid to speak up. If you encounter ageism, challenge it. Educate people. Advocate for yourself and for others.
It's about reclaiming your power, right? Like not letting ageism define you.
Exactly. And remember, aging is a natural part of life. It's not something to fear, it's something to embrace. Think about all the wisdom and experience you've gained over the years. Those are precious things.
It's about reframing how we think about aging, not as decline, but as growth.
Beautifully said. And be kind to yourself. There will be good days and bad days. It's a journey.
And I love seeing all the support in that Reddit thread. Women sharing their stories and advice, lifting each other up. It makes a difference.
Yeah.
It does. We're stronger together, right?
Right.
Finding communities where you feel valued and respected, connecting with people who understand that's so important.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listener to walk away with?
It's easy to feel powerless in the face of ageism, but consider this. How can you choose to age differently? What do you want your legacy to be? Not just what you achieve, but how you treat others and how you challenge those outdated norms. That's where your true power lies.
That's a beautiful message. It's about taking control of your own story, creating a future where age is celebrated, not feared. And if you're enjoying this conversation about ageism, be sure to like and subscribe to Voices of the Soul. You can find us on YouTube by searching for Shauna Pelage. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.